My name is Dave Diorio. You can find me on Twitter at @fat_lobster. And I'm joined by two guys who are such weasels it isn't even funny. What's up, Chuck and Gene?
Hey, Dave. Hey, Gene. This is Chuck Siders. And I really resent being in any way associated with Mike Sielski. He and I have had our problems. They're documented. If you want to see them, go to @ChuckSiders on Twitter. If you're smart and can search like both of us, just do it. We had a epic Valentine's Day argument that delayed a date with my then wife. It's not the reason that we're not married anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Gene Zelak. You just saw me on the live Flyers stream if you were watching along. Yeah, I always thought of myself more as an eel, less of a weasel, as far as evil sidekick from Disney movies, animals. But maybe that's just me. And you can find my other thoughts on sort of animal relations and whatnot at Producer Gene. That's my Twitter handle. And you can find the show at PodAdelphia, in case nobody else has said that already.
I didn't. You picked it up, Gene. You saved the show.
Yes.
Gene, which eel are you from the Disney universe? What is it? Floatsome and...
I believe it's Flotsam and Jetsam. I've never heard it called
Jetsam. There it is. All right, nice. You're more like a Jetsam.
I feel like I'm a Jetsam. I was very quick.
George Jetsam the eel. Okay, so why don't we start with that press conference, the Weasel press. I mean, it's a good enough place to start.
Yeah. Let's start with some happy news.
What precipitated the Weasel comment? Why?
All right. Well, if you want to know, we get into it on a previous episode of PodAdelphia in the penalty box. It was the November show right after Halloween, because the article came out late on Halloween, which is apparently an excuse. Mike Sielski thinks that's a good excuse for being an asshole. I don't, but hey, that's just me. And it was criticizing the Flyers' play early in the season and really putting it on Giroux and Voracek. And AV kind of called them out, and we sort of applauded AV at the time for doing so. Well, we've constantly applauded AV's openness. To go from Dave Haxtell to Elaine Vigneault, it's night and day. And AV was saying, hey, our best players need to step up. Our veteran leaders need to step up. And there were a few really caustic, journalistically irresponsible things to say. And that is a pet peeve of mine. If you see me yelling at people on Twitter, it's because I feel like they have a platform, a pulpit, and are using it improperly. And Sielski's the most irresponsible thing about that article, and there were several, had to do with Jake Voracek and JVR laughing. In the locker room, AV was speaking and calling people to be better, whatever. And JVR and Jacob, like I'm his first grade teacher, and Voracek,
it's Jakob.
were in the background laughing, and Sielski goes, "What were they laughing about? I don't know. Were they laughing at their coach? Could be. Who am I to say?" And that was his good version of it.
Nothing gets old guard Philadelphia fans or writers gets their hackles up more than laughing, smiling, or enjoying yourself when the team isn't doing well or you've made a mistake. I think back to the Donovan smiling after an interception, oh
my God, yes,
bananas. And then this feels kind of like the same thing.
No, we should all treat everything exactly with the same facial expression as Buddy Ryan had for everything. Which is basically, I'm going to punch you, especially if you're an assistant coach for the Houston Oilers.
Yeah, or if you follow sports talk radio in this town, you should just be mad all the time about everything.
Yeah, and just to go over a few more Sielski highlights, in that same article, he said that Giroux wasn't a good captain because he wasn't an inspiring leader. I don't know where you get that from. Oftentimes, I thought, earlier in his career, he was too gung-ho. I remember a game in the last days of Peter Laviolette where it was early in the game, Giroux missed, not even an open net, but like he missed a shot. Maybe it was close to an open net. And he's on the bench, like trying to break his stick. And I'm like, dude, it's game 3. Calm the fuck down. And Giroux would do that. That would be a problem of his. So I don't get where you can get off calling him a bad leader. Sealski was also the guy that said the Flyers need a change of culture when they hired Berube. Said like, oh, they keep hiring people from the Flyers. And that's a different conversation for a different day. Most recently, he wrote about Philadelphia likes Wawa too much. They're substandard hoagies, and we should be more proud of local joints. Somehow those two are mutually exclusive. And lastly, it was in the playoffs against the Islanders. It was against the Canadians, saying like, oh, well, Hart had a great series, and he's just like his idol, Carey Price. But you should be, wary because Carey Price struggled.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
It was such a nonsense article. It was people are excited about Carter Hart, but it's like, oh, be careful. One day he might be bad. Which, I mean, fine, legitimate, but why the hell are you writing an article about it? So, long story short, after my list of personal grievances, we suspect that Jake's stems back to that Halloween article where he says he was laughing behind AV's back.
Nice. All right. Well, all right. So let's get into the season so far. 3 games in. Let's not talk about tonight just yet. Let's talk about the first 2 games against the Penguins. Good results. Right? I mean, you got what you wanted. 2 wins against your hated rivals, which is great. But there were some problems in the mix there too, right?
Yeah, certainly. There were. And I'm more, I don't want to say dismissive of the problems than most, but I'm not worried about them just yet. Tonight's results move them up the list a little, but I'm not there just yet. In the first 2 games, the 5-on-5 play was not stellar. We didn't dominate 5-on-5 play.
Can we position the conversation this way? Like in fine Philadelphia tradition, can we just let's talk about like top 5 problems with the Flyers right now after 3 games?
All right, number 1. The
2-1. Let's talk about the top 5 problems.
Top 5 problems. All right.
Are there 5?
I don't know if there's 5. Well, I mean, there's 6 defensemen.
Top 3 things.
You want to just list a defenseman?
Maybe. I'm going to say the biggest problems are
offense, defense, and goaltending.
Not goaltending. Hart's been good to very good at times, which is fine at this point in the season.
Yeah, he looked great in game 2.
Yeah, he looked great in game 2. And game 1, he looked good. Tonight, he was left out to dry. It's that dominating puck possession, really, I think that was an issue. Now, we have a comment, because we are live and taking comments. Flyers threw turpentine on TPL tonight. Damn them. Well, that is the best way to kill a tune. We did learn that from Roger Rabbit. Spoilers for those that didn't know how that would turn out. Yeah, the Flyers really did dampen our spirits tonight. We were sort of expecting to be rah, 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 or all fired up. But I think we still can. Issues that the Flyers have had has been the play of the defense, which hasn't had any preseason games, no preseason games, a couple scrimmages, and hardly any training camp. If you look around, it looks like the 80s out there, man. Defense is not being very well played in the NHL right now. So a concerning thing that crept in a little more tonight is the lack of, positional play, the real I'm going to hold my lane. I'm going to hold my guy and be confident that the other defenseman or that the forwards or the center are going to hold theirs. Tonight's game against Buffalo, which Dave said we weren't going to start with, but I guess we're starting with, there was so much chasing the puck. There were so many times where the defense just collapsed. And to me, that shows you don't trust your coworkers, your teammates. You don't trust your teammates that you want to, play a bit of hero ball to go Carson Wentz. So, that's the way it works there. Is it shinny defense? Actually, maybe that's a really good analogy. I like the term shinny defense. Outside of that, there was a lot to be excited about. So do you guys have anything that struck you as particularly bad or off about the Flyers?
I don't know. To me, it just looked really haphazard today. It looked, shinny defense it looked lazy to me. It looked like there wasn't a sense of urgency or crispness to the game at all today. And, I don't know if that's hey, we're 2-0, we're playing an 0-2 team on our home ice. This is going to be, it's the front end of a back-to-back. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there was a mental issue, and that's kind of what, I messaged you earlier in the night. Like, I think AV needs to, already start getting into this, after that first period, because the first period was a mess. And we know Flyers' second periods aren't really all that much to write home about so far this season, either. So I wanted to see a little more sense of urgency, after they came out of the locker room for the second period. And I didn't see. Obviously, I didn't see it.
Yeah, and Gene, your thoughts before I go back to more of mine.
Well, I think sort of trying to not put too much weight on Game 3 versus the other two, but I think what sort of crept in was maybe problems that were already brewing all along, and I think it really does go back to there's a communication issue, I believe, and it might be sort of throughout the whole team. And I think that you can put some of it on the fact that even though these are a lot of new players that were not necessarily free agents that were brought in, but you've got guys coming in that hadn't played together as much, even with Oscar Lindblom, for example, he was out for a long time. You've got Patrick back. So you're working in some new players, even though they were on the team before. So that's going to be some adjustment as far as communication. But as far as the defense is concerned, I think originally the plan was probably to have Provorov and Ghost as the top pair, and Ghost has not played yet, I don't think, because he's in some sort of COVID protocol. So you end up sort of already into the depth a little bit, and that's going to be sort of chronic throughout the whole season. You're going to see people sort of having to go in and out because of these protocols. And it's not atypical of the Flyers to sort of come out and have a game like this. One of the things I was talking about earlier was, it sort of felt like one of those West Coast go out to Edmonton and get beat 4-0 and be exhausted sort of from the travel sort of game. Now, obviously you didn't go through the travel part, but I do feel like that's something that hockey teams sort of adjust to early in the season, is that as you sort of ramp up to game speed, you're going to have a night like this. And I don't even think it's a physical exhaustion as much as it's a mental exhaustion. And I certainly also think that having played two games that were very hard fought against your rival to open the season, and then you're going to play an 0-2 Buffalo game, whether you want to or not, that is the recipe for you're going to be sort of mentally checked out, and they are going to come in a lot hotter.
There's something about these Flyers if your nose is attuned to the Flyers, you can smell these losses coming somehow. And I think those first two Penguins games were like Axe body spray a little bit, and you could tell if you were paying close, you could smell the BO a little bit. It was going to come through. Eventually that Axe body spray was going to wear off, and this loss was good. But it's easy to say with hindsight, but there was something a little fishy about this game.
The only thing that gave me hope that this wouldn't be a letdown game or a trap game was as the third game of the season. Mm-hmm. And I'm disappointed with how they came out tonight because it was the third game of the season. And because it was the first full game without Couturier, even though he was barely there in the second game of the Penguins series. I love series. I love this new format, by the way, but we'll get to that later, I'm sure. But it was your first full game without Couturier, first full game with Frost. You looked good for the most part, occasionally passed too much. But I would have liked to see more effort. The thing that causes me more pronounced concern is not the defense. The defense, I think, will get straightened out. I put out there on Twitter, kind of facetiously, but not really. It was one of those like flirty things of like, I'm just kidding. Unless like, are you serious? Like if you're serious, I could be serious. That I would like a veteran defenseman on a 1-year contract to come in, preferably like a big body. And Braden Coburn is with the Ottawa Senators right now. 1 year, $1.5 million. On the bottom pair, to have a big body who's been there before, can maybe act as a calming presence to help this defense along if we need it. I think Chuck Fletcher won't hesitate to make that move. He's been pretty good at pulling those triggers of adding just the right, secondary player, the sort of ancillary assisting player to the team. And somebody like a Braden Coburn wouldn't be a bad fit to go, hey guys, play the system. The system is good. Now, I hope that in the next few weeks, someone like Provorov, someone like Sanheim, you're a veteran now. Sorry, you are. Someone like Provorov, someone like Sanheim. Myers is still young, but he's got to get with the program. Haig is Haig. He's fine.
I heard an interview with Tarian this week where he was really talking about how much the Flyers are missing Niskanen.
Yeah.
And they desperately do exactly what you're saying, a defenseman to just calm it down. And there was never really a time tonight where everything was calm.
Nope.
It was like always chasing after the play, and it never settled. They never got settled. And I think to me the switch went off when there was that one shift where it was like 4 defensive zone turnovers, like back to back to back to back, and I was like, oh, this is that night. This is that night.
Yeah. It felt like that night pretty damn early. I was hoping that the second period would start strong and let some of the offensive firepower that we really do have and that we saw a ton of in the first 2 games would be able to take it over. Provy's my guy, but he didn't look good tonight. We talked offline a lot about the ice looking bad. The ice did look bad. A lot of pucks got trapped up in it, but still, the ice is bad for both teams. And a lot of my excuses about our defense being young, they're not so young anymore. I'm going to say like Myers is on the young side. Nobody else has that excuse anymore. So it's time to quote AV and put on your big boy pants. And if Provy and Sanheim, and to a lesser extent Haig's different just because he's not the talent guy. I mean, he plays a useful role, aren't ready to lead, then let's go find a Coburn. On the positive front, our 4 lines, even without Couturier, who will hopefully be back in the next 2 to 4 weeks, look good. Like not tonight, again, Buffalo game aside, but it looks really hard to play against. And once again, Kevin Hayes has been the most prepared Flyer, the one who's been ready to go, from the beginning of last season to the return after the pause to the beginning of this season. The level of play he brings as a play driver is huge. Now, he's not been on the score sheet as much as Farabee, Days Boy, as much as Farabee, as much as Konechny, but just seeing the kind of play that Hayes brings, I love the way he's been ready to go. No slow starts from Hayes, but all 4 lines, I'm really smitten. I think we have something special on offense.
Are we ready to bring up Cam York yet? Is the question.
He's still playing in college, and the answer is no. Also,
there's excuses any. I don't know.
I mean, you can blow off a few classes. I blew off a few classes, and I turned out just fine.
Yeah, you'll get used to that annoying question if you watch us every week.
Yes. Well, the other one was Igor Zamula, and he's going to be with. Yeah. Oh, and he was really good with Russia in World Juniors. He's shown a lot of presence. The one scrimmage that was televised, and thank God for that, because it's the only sort of, viewing of the players preseason I got to see, you could see that Zamula was too small. You could see that he was not NHL ready, that he was just getting bodied off the puck a little too much. And thankfully, the AHL should be coming back February 5th, so we can, see someone like him ramp up.
All right. Any other thoughts on the Flyers before we move on?
Oh, I'm sure I have tons. Because of the Eagles and because of Doug's firing, we didn't really do a season preview. I put it out there on Twitter. I'll just put it out here. I had picked the Flyers to win the division. I know, surprise. I didn't pick them to win the division last year. I did 2 years ago. I look like an idiot then. But Capitals finishing just behind them, then the Bruins, then the Islanders. I will say the thing about our division is that it's the toughest division of all 4. It's going to be, there is no easy out besides, I'd say, the Devils. Even this Buffalo team, who I expect to be just above the Devils, has really improved. There's a lot of talent there. So it's going to be
all beat each other up, or is it an iron sharpens iron situation?
Oh, very philosophical. I think we all beat each other up.
NFC East philosophy back when we were kids and they were.
Yeah.
Well, but unfortunately, we don't have anybody but our division, right? There is no outside of the division play this year.
Correct. And in the series format, I'm really excited. It is, we control our own destiny. And thank you on that, Gene. It's the one last point I want to talk about before we move away from hockey, if we have to, is I heard a lot of talk. It's like, oh, it's all division games. If you fall behind, you are so screwed. It's all division games. If you fall behind, you can catch up.
Yeah.
It's it cuts both ways. Now, you don't want to, and you have to be a good team in order to catch up. But every game's at least a 4-point game. Yeah. So if the Flyers were to go on a little bit of a bad stretch, that hot stretch they were on last season, where, up to the pause, something like that, again, puts them in first place comfortably, as opposed to knocking on the doorstep of Washington. And I think there's a lot of teams the Flyers really do match up well against in our division. So I'm really optimistic there. I love the series, the series format. And we get to face Buffalo again tomorrow, and we get to find out whether Buffalo is a team we match up poorly against, like the Islanders. The Islanders are not the most talented team in the division. The Islanders are the team I least want to face in the playoffs because they match up really well against the Flyers.
Well, this may also be a testament about the coaches in the league too, because it's going to be like an adjustment season. You can't just be like, oh, this is my system, so I just let it rip every night. You are going to have to adjust because everyone's going to be kind of adjusting off each other. It's like a humongously long playoff series that's going to last 50 games against 7 other teams. So
Jesus Christ, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. And the last thought before I relinquish the microphone is
you're going to still talk about these other teams.
Well, yeah, I am, but I'm not going to monopolize it. What I'm going to say is winning the game in regulation when you have a lead going in the third is huge. There is no more the Flyers are up 3-2, like they were, was it 3-2 against the Penguins going into the third? Or was it 3-3? I forget. But whatever. If you're up 3-2 going into the third, you have to win in regulation. Winning 4-3 in overtime, you generated a point, and you gave a division rival a point. If you are down 3-2 going into the third, I don't care if you win, you have to force overtime. Like, overtime is going to be the difference maker. If you can prevent that loser point from being generated, and you can generate it yourself, whether you win or lose those games or you manage to take it to overtime, you're gonna win the division.
And
you're gonna win the division.
We were watching around the league too, because I was flipping over, before the Flyers game, and I was watching the Bruins Islanders game, and we did not want that game to go into overtime.
Yeah,
you'd rather just have a team win.
Right.
Exactly.
I think it's going to be for a much more interesting watching other games this year. Maybe I'm going to care a lot less about an Avalanche Sharks game or whatever, but I'm going to care a whole hell of a lot about a Boston Rangers game.
Well, you're denying yourself, because that Avs Sharks matchup is a pretty fun one.
It's just on late.
All right, let's move on to the Eagles and their coaching search, because a lot of stuff came out this week that was a little eyebrow-raising, you might say. So the first thing I want to start off with was Troy Aikman's comments about why Doug Peterson was fired. Have you guys heard this comment or anything?
I haven't.
So Troy Aikman says, I reached out to Doug Peterson yesterday when I heard the news, and I'm surprised at what I gathered. I don't know. I don't have any insight, but what I gathered, what it came down to was a difference of opinion as to how they were moving forward at the quarterback position is what I sensed. I sensed that Jeff Lurie, the owner, has paid a lot of money to Carson Wentz, and they're on the hook with him. They can't get out of that contract right away, and yet it's my belief that Doug Peterson felt that Jalen Hurts was probably the quarterback going forward, and how does that mesh? And so I just, without having any understanding of what took place in that meeting, I think they said there's a difference of opinion as to how they're going to go forward and correct this past season. And I believe it all came down to how they were going to handle Carson Wentz. And that is why Doug Peterson is now looking for a job.
Do you think it's that simple? Seems like an awful simple way to just fire a coach. You know what I mean?
I don't know. It struck me as surprising, though, because I never thought that, as an outside observer, as a fan watching the Eagles, I never felt that, or I got a sense that Doug was, Jalen is the guy and Carson's the problem. I never got that sense. I never got that sense in post-game press conferences. I never got that sense, when Doug spoke to the media, when they talked about, even when Jalen Hurts had a good game, like Doug very much downplayed it. Now, again, is that he's being tempered by the Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman specters above him, saying like, hey, you have to position everything where it's Carson. But I just never got that sense. So I was surprised to hear that Troy Aikman got that out of his conversation with Doug.
And I mean, was Doug simply coming in and saying it's going to be an open competition? Was that enough for Jeffrey Lurie to say like, oh no, it's not an open competition. Carson's going to start. This is the thing that shocks me, is because Doug Peterson didn't make the draft pick. He didn't bring the other quarterback in. So if they're now going to fire him because they brought in another quarterback, really, who's the asshole? That's my question.
Yeah, we need a Howie Roseman, am I the asshole Reddit post.
And we need the right abbreviations, like male general manager, head coach in his 50s.
Yeah, we should write that. That would be good.
We should write that. But I had heard the comments. I just didn't associate them with Troy Aikman. It just didn't stick in my brain that way. And for me, it wasn't that surprising. I don't believe that Peterson says, well, hey, the job is Hurts no matter what. But maybe like Gene says, he wants more of an open competition. I kind of feel like Doug said, hey, it's your job to lose to Wentz this season, and gave him ample opportunity to lose it before giving Hurts an opportunity. And I don't think Doug is up to do that again. Well, obviously not now. He's fired. But I don't think he was going to do that again. And I think Laurie kind of wants it to go. Laurie's not dumb. Laurie wants to win. But I think he wants to go, let's reset the clock. It's Wentz's ball again. And I want him to have the exact same leash as he had before, which under Doug, I don't think was going to happen.
I also think it has as much to do with, and maybe it just doesn't make for good conversation between Doug and Troy Aikman. I have no idea how much they chat, and if they have a group chat that they'd be willing to let me join. I wonder who else would be in that. Maybe Ron Jaworski. But what I think it has as much to do with the fact that Doug may have come into the meeting being like, I don't have any plans to change how I run this offense. Like, I'm probably going to have a couple of different coaches, but they're going to be my guys, and I'm going to call plays. And I'm going to pick the quarterback.
That's what we heard. That's what we heard all along, was that Doug was tired of being told what to do or whatever, and he felt like he earned the right to make his own decisions regarding the coaching staff. So again, we've talked about this on the pod before. Like, somebody really needs to do like a 30 for 30 about this, or some sort of like expose on what really happened behind the scenes, starting from the beginning of the 2017 season, like all the way through. I mean, I guess this drama really still isn't over yet. But we're going to find maybe what you were referring to is the comments from, or I don't know, Mike Garafolo came out with something that says, sources have told me what the team is telling head coach candidates in interviews is, one, the coach will obviously have a big say in how they handle the quarterback situation, but two, they do believe in this guy. They want him back. So if you're a head coach and you're going into those meetings saying, I want Wentz out and Hurts in, I think that's probably going to hurt your standing in the interview process. So what they're saying there is that we're definitely favoring coaching candidates that are going to go with Wentz or prefer Wentz. Or if you want the job, you better at least say you prefer Wentz.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that the first part of this whole story about Doug's firing being because he didn't want Wentz, that comes from a freaking Cowboy. So
in his thoughts, right?
Yeah, and all Cowboys' thoughts get filtered around how can you screw the Eagles. So I only take that as a grain of salt. At least that's my head.
It always comes through for you, man. Like that Cowboy hate just always just.
It's in my genetic code. You know what I mean? Bad gallbladder, Cowboy hate. Those are the things that are going to be in my genetic code. Yeah, I just don't. I don't put a lot of stock in the idea that it was that simple of a conversation, especially considering there were two meetings. And I really do believe it was a lot more to do with Jeffrey Lurie wants some sort of new offensive philosophy, and Doug Peterson is like, I like how I call a game. I don't really have any intention of changing. That just makes more sense to me as to why you would fire the head coach.
Yeah. Comment here from Mark saying that Josh McDaniels will be the next coach unless he backs out. Certainly is on the list, and they did get permission, and they did interview him this week. And to be honest, that's of the candidates that we've interviewed, Josh McDaniels is my front runner for sure, and who I would actually prefer. I think there's really something about these failed head coaches going back to either being coordinators or assistant coaches, whatever, and then coming back for a second run at the head coach gig. I think they learn a lot from there. I mean, you look at even Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll. A lot of these coaches, have not had a lot of success early on, and then came back for another tour of duty and, done great things. And I feel like Josh McDaniels is a bright guy. He's got to be, right? So
the interesting thing is that a lot of people are giving Josh McDaniels a lot of flack because of how he handled the situation with Indianapolis. And I mean, I honestly don't know how that all shook out. I know he was offered the job, looked like he was going to take the job, and then didn't. So I don't know if that was a failure somewhere in the the communication between him and that front office or what it was. But, guys don't turn down head coaching jobs unless there's some sort of fundamental breakdown somewhere along the line. And I don't know that we're ever going to get the truth as to what caused that. I think a lot of people might be real high on Todd Bowles right now. I just don't see Jeffrey Lurie bringing in a defensive-minded coach. I just don't think that that's his MO. He's never done it. Yeah, he's interviewed a few. I think he's doing his due diligence, but I just feel like we know that Jeffrey Lurie is once like that offensive-minded head coach. That's just been his style, and he likes to go with what he feels is something different. He went with Andy Reid, who was basically a complete unknown at the time, not even a coordinator. He went with Chip Kelly, who was doing something completely off the wall. He brought in Doug Peterson, sort of on high recommendation from Andy Reid to be a stabilizing force in the franchise and sort of go back to the way they were doing business. He had some success there. So, that just is sort of what Jeffrey Lurie does. I think our bigger problem is this is going to be really the hire that is going to determine whether or not Jeffrey Lurie is too much of a meddling owner. You know what I mean? This is where he can make that heel turn towards villain, towards Dan Snyder, towards Jerry Jones. If he can keep his nose enough out of things and Harry Roseman can hit a home run on this draft because he really, really needs to hit on that 6th pick.
Yeah, and you just got fact checked because Ray Rhodes was a Jeffrey Lurie hire, his first hire, and defensive guy. Yeah, and I mean, I think that experience may have terrified Jeffrey Lurie about hiring defense. Where I don't know if people are going to come into Jeffrey Lurie's house, steal his children, smash all of his vases and run out, but I know that I think that experience may have just said okay, I'm just stick with these offensive guys. They're a lot more.
I don't want these defensive guys. They're too moody or whatever.
I mean, I just hired Matt Patricia. He'd be like captaining a pirate ship or something, and I don't know.
What else do you think it comes along with a hire like Josh McDaniels? Do you think that do you think you suddenly see a shift towards bringing in more folks off of the Bill Belichick tree away from the Andy Reid tree? Do you want to be the NFC East version of the Patriots? And I don't mean, sure. I mean, obviously with the winning thing, but is that sort of the style of play that you want? I mean, and I guess we're going to find out. We're going to find out really whether it was all Brady or it was more Belichick and McDaniels. And I mean, Brady's going to another NFC Championship game, and Belichick missed the playoffs. So I don't know. Jury's still out, I guess.
Right. Yeah, great comment there. McDaniels learned how to turn down a head coach job from his boss Belichick and the Jets. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, if you look at this list of candidates that they've interviewed, Todd Bowles, Joe Brady, Duce Staley, Jared Mayo, and Josh McDaniels, I really don't see how they go. If McDaniels turns it down, it would be the only reason I think they would go with someone else. And he may, because you're in this dysfunctional Roseman-Lurie marriage, and you may not be able to do what you want to do there, and they may not want you to be able to do what you want to do there. So.
Do you think it's interesting that some current and former players have come out sort of on social media in favor of Duce Staley? I specifically heard, I'm trying to remember which player, but one of them specifically said, I'd be happy to play for Coach Duce and that he would have the respect of the room. Do you think there's anything to that? Or do you think that's just guys sort of puffing up the guy that's been here for a long time and has put in his work and they want to see something good come out of Duce? But I don't know. I don't know if he's ready. Ready might not even be the right word. I don't know if he's a good fit necessarily as the head coach of the Eagles.
Well, let's talk about Duce, because I think a lot of people made the same joke of it's like Duce, Rooney Rule, Staley. And if you're only going to bring him in to interview him to meet a requirement, then it's a disservice to both him, the Rooney Rule, and your team. The whole idea is not like tokenism, not like, okay, we interviewed a non-white head coach. We interviewed a black head coach.
To even do in this year, because you've already brought in Todd Bowles. One of the other top candidates is Bellamy or in Kansas City. These are guys that are, the pool seems very diverse this year. It seems like a lot of different both philosophies and ethnicities are in the pool this year.
Yeah, but I don't know. Duce was one of the first candidates, if not the first candidate interviewed, if I'm not mistaken. But it just seems to be, maybe if it's not to satisfy the Rooney rule, maybe it's just he's a nice guy, but no one has faith in him.
Are you going to say no? You can't interview for this job at this point. I mean, we've come too far with the relationship and the tenure and everything.
Yeah, I mean, he's worked his way up from running back coach to assistant head coach or whatever his title is.
Look, there's people in my organization that I would love to work for. Believe me, doesn't necessarily mean that they would be the best person for that job. And when you start asking players, who do you want to be your coach? I think you're already setting yourself up for some sort of failure, because those are not the questions you should be asking.
It was Malcolm Jenkins. That's who had come out sort of in favor of him. I knew it was a guy that was still in the league but not on the team. It was Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I think they like Duce. I think Duce is good. Yeah, I just keep coming back to who else is asking to interview Duce? Look, where else? Who? What other vacancies around the league were like, hey, can we have permission to speak with Duce Staley because we love what he's doing in Philadelphia with the running back rotation? Like, I just don't. It's not happening. So I don't. It's a good indicator as to whether you have a future head coach on your coaching staff or not.
Yeah, the same thing with Andy Reid and the quarterbacks coach, though. I mean, he ultimately got a job from it, but how much can you tell from a position coach? And Andy Reid was quarterback coach for Brett Favre. Brett Favre did pretty well without Andy Reid.
Right.
So I mean, how that like. If you're a running back coach and you don't have any good running backs, or you have a couple of mediocre ones.
Can we talk about Andy Reid for a second?
Sure.
Are we? Do we still have to root for Andy Reid?
No, not even a little.
Like, I don't want Andy Reid to win the Super Bowl now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
He got his one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Bills.
Oh yeah.
Me too.
The only thing that would be better is if there was a way that the Bills could somehow beat the other three teams in the NFC East by winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I really wanted a Bills-Browns AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I did too.
Really great. That would have been a lot of fun. But yeah, I just want. Actually, now I kind of want Andy Reid to win another Super Bowl just to hear what Angelo says in the morning. How absolutely explode. Good for Andy. All right. Let's see. Oh, and one last thing. I heard Howard Eskin report that the game day rosters were actually finalized by Howie Roseman and given to Doug Peterson. And he was kind of locked in. I don't know how true that is. It was like Howard just dropped that on the radio at 10 a.m. on Saturday. But I did hear him say that, and I don't know what kind of evidence he has or if that's true or not. But if that's true, that's bananas.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything quite even in baseball. You don't hear about GMs walking line apart down.
But it could explain some of those head scratching things, like why Mailata is benched for whenever Peterson wants to hop in there, or Alshon Jeffrey is playing over some of these younger guys. It could explain some of that, I'm paying all this money for these guys, they're going to play. I don't know.
If I were Doug and someone did that to me, I'd show them my Super Bowl ring, tell them to shove it up their ass and walk away. I mean,
maybe show him his. After got a Super Bowl ring, doesn't he?
We don't know. We got to wait for the call.
I mean, they might have, but it's, I don't know.
Honestly, this year would not be the year I would want it out that I was the one making those decisions and not Doug Peterson if I was Howie Roseman. I've been like, I was that guy. He was the one making those decisions. It had nothing to do with me. Don't blame me.
And speaking of Jason Peters, one more year, run it back with Jason Peters.
Oh, Jesus Christ! No.
I don't think he's running anywhere.
No, I think the Jason Peters saga needs to come to a halt. I think that if whatchamacallit, if Jeffrey Lurie, his close personal friend, wants him around, he can find him a job in the front office. Like, I'm sure that he could become like Jeffrey Lurie's personal bodyguard. He can protect Jeffrey Lurie's blind side, but I don't want him anywhere near my offensive line at this point.
Retire a hero or play long enough to become a villain. That's the Jason Peters epitaph.
He's definitely pushing that line.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to talk about the Phillies? They did some stuff.
I do want to talk about the Phillies. You want to start with JT?
It sort of is all going to wrap into sort of the same thing. You
heard it here first. Breaking news.
What?
No, that's just. You have an offer on the table, right?
It's in
$100 million offer on the table. It feels to me like they want him to turn it down, and they can say, "We made JT Realmuto a 5-year, $100 million offer. What do you want from us?"
Now, the problem is, though, who else is making him an offer anywhere near that right now?
I mean, of course, he'll take it if he can get it. I don't know if he'll be happy with it, though.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, if you take a long-term deal like that, you're going to sign for 5 years to be miserable. I don't know that makes any sense. You don't sign a $100 million deal and then demand a trade. That just doesn't.
Well, look, if they don't fix the bullpen, you'll be rolling your eyes for 5 years.
Well,
and I will love every eye roll.
Yeah, I do think that they've at least made strides towards correcting the bullpen, at least to a certain degree this year. But I feel like a lot of the other suitors for JT Realmuto have already sort of spent their money.
That's true.
I think maybe Toronto is still lurking. Maybe the Angels are still lurking, but the two New York teams feel like they've sort of moved on to other targets, and certainly the Mets feel like they've spent an awful lot of money and made a lot of moves to sort of put themselves in a position where they look like they may be, if not the team to beat in the division, certainly going to be creeping up on the Braves this year. You got to see how things sort of shake out once you actually get people in the building. But yeah, no, I think that, from everything I'm reading, a lot of people are starting to say, well, JT is, the Phillies are the front runner now.
Ken, I was looking that up while we were speaking. It was Ken Rosenthal who said it, I think, on MLB Network, that it looks likely that not just the Phillies being the leader in the clubhouse, but it looks likely that Realmuto comes back.
Now, see if you can find the Twitter account for that guy that during the whole Bryce Harper saga was putting it out like, every day. Oh, the Giants. It's going to be the Dodgers. It's going to be the Phillies. He's going back to the Nationals.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the Bitmoji. I mean, I just did it there. That guy. And I'm blanking on his name, and I'm better off for having forgotten it.
I think it's John Heyman.
John Heyman. There we go.
I knew it would come to me.
Yeah, but he was like the mouthpiece for an agent. He was, and you have certain insiders that way that, they're leaking information to be a reliable source or whatever, to be an insider, but it's coming directly from the agent, to negotiate in public. I don't think Ken Rosenthal is one of those people, as far as I know. I think if he says it's
dress like it.
No, he doesn't. He dresses like the fussiest door-to-door salesman you've ever seen.
It probably is either the Phillies or the Blue Jays at this point, because I think that the Blue Jays are the only other team that's currently in communication with the Realmuto camp. So, I mean, I think that would be great. I think I hear that Didi Gregorius coming back the needle is swinging to more and more likely for that.
Oh, good. I didn't hear that. I'm happy about that.
But I mean, outside of Didi Gregorius, I mean, maybe I'm on an island here, but I would love to bring back Freddie Galvis.
I like Freddie Galvis's defense, and he's become a relatively consistent hitter. He's not going to have the same pop that you have with Didi Gregorius.
I prefer Didi. Don't get me wrong.
But I think that if you're going to get JT back and you can use that money that you would save on Didi to supplement either another outfielder or more help in the bullpen. I'm still also concerned with the fact that you don't have a fourth and fifth starter really in mind for this team. I do think that obviously the bullpen was the bigger problem. There were a lot of games that we had leads in the eighth inning that were evaporated, but I don't know. I think that it would be nice to sort of keep the offense together, honestly.
I'm more in the camp of if it's Didi or Freddie and we can get Freddie and supplement the bullpen, bring Galvis back. It'd be nice. I was going to say the world's most optimistic and perhaps self-deluded thing. It'd be nice to bring Galvis back from, back when the Phillies really, struggled, onto a good team, ignoring their records the past 2 seasons. But I would like to see Galvis return to the fold if what we save on money for him can be used to supplement the pitching staff. I think Galvis has turned into a nice low player.
Galvis hit 23 home runs in 2019, and that was with half the season in San Diego. So just saying, he's got pop. I mean, he's got more pop, I think, than people give him credit for. The only reason why I know so much about Freddie Galvis is he is, for some reason, my son's favorite baseball player in the major leagues. I mean, you could pick Mike Trout, you could pick Bryce Harper, you could pick Aaron Judge, but
is it the hair?
What's that?
Is it the hair?
I think it's just the first guy ever. He was the best player on the Phillies during that year or something. So.
Well, my son's favorite, I've brought this up on the show many times, is Brian Elliott. And just because we met Brian Elliott at the
Why you grow that Carter Hart hate in your house? It's just
no. He the other day said Carter Hart is my favorite player.
Oh, come on.
And then was reminded of Brian Elliott. He goes, "Oh yeah, well, I like Brian Elliott too." But I worked hard. I worked really hard. But he's like, Brian Elliott's my favorite player. I'm like, you need to get over that, bud. Like, I love Brian Elliott. Brian Elliott was really awesome to you at the carnival, but you're in for heartbreak when, no pun intended, when he and I know I shared this on the show, but I just love this moment where he was mad and the Stadium Series season was at 18-19, where it's like Carter Hart's hogging the net. He needs to share. I'm like, that's so sweet, buddy. But yeah, I want him to play every game.
You got a lot to learn about this cold, hard world we live in. Phillies also signed Archie Bradley. Shore up the bullpen. Great move.
Already listed as the new closer
before All-Star break. What's that?
He's already listed as our closer.
Yeah. I don't know. Or you mean David Robinson's not going to be the closer?
I have no idea, but I hope not.
And, endearing himself to Phillies fans already, tweets out, sign JT as his first official tweet as a Philadelphia Philly. I love it.
Love it.
He also asked for recommendations of shows to follow, and I appreciate that we were able to get our GIF in to volunteer as tribute. So, nice. Archie, if you're listening, welcome to the show. Have you on anytime.
Before we get to our penalty boxes this week, real quick, let's just talk about the Sixers just real quick. I know Peyton Lyons pretty much has Sixers covered pretty excellently. But this report from Pompeii kind of struck me that the Sixers thought they were so close to the deal with James Harden that Simmons and Thibel's agents basically told them to be ready for the trade.
Yeah.
What kind of, I don't know, psychological impact does that have on someone when that trade doesn't go through and now you're kind of like, well, I guess we're stuck. It's like love the one you're with, right? If you can't be the one you
love God. No, I read that same thing, and I think that's it's scary in sort of two different ways. that we were that close and didn't end up with James Harden, who, by the way, looks incredible. I don't know what weight loss plan he's gotten himself onto, but just from traveling to Houston to the Nets, that guy got.
He was wearing a fat suit to help him get traded.
Yeah.
He's like an extra from the clumps out there.
Maybe it was Eddie Murphy in
hard
makeup.
Yeah.
I would see the shit out of that movie. So if Eddie Murphy, or if you're listening, that is like after Coming to America too, it's getting my ass traded with Eddie Murphy. And
I think it's Get My Ass to Brooklyn is the name of the.
There you go. Workshopping this. I love it.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys think that Ben is just fine?
Well, my agent told me that I was going to be traded before I got on the show tonight, and I managed to.
I tried like hell, Gene.
I just stuck it up. I will say that it does have a psychological.
We almost had Ira Glass on this show, but hey,
he's staying in Chicago, bastard.
Wait, was it straight up Gene for Ira Glass?
I'll give you Gene and future considerations.
Cash. It's always going to involve cash.
Yeah, I'd trade all three of us for Ira Glass. I don't even know if he knows sports.
This is. I have a lot of potential. I have a very high ceiling. Ira Glass. He's got good genetics. He's got a good family, thing with Phil in the. I don't know if you've heard of Uncle Phil. But I don't have it. I don't have that going on. But yeah, and I definitely have the face for radio. He's a little better than me.
Well,
Oh
no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I imagine it's going to take some time to sort of get over that, especially for someone like Ben Thibault. You would imagine he'd be in any blockbuster trade. He's young. He is not the superstar in the team. He is the kind of player that gets traded, as a supplementary piece. But if you're Ben, to know that the Sixers looked at you and said, we want to win a championship and we're willing to sacrifice you to do it. If you feel like this is your team and you get a pretty definitive message that it's Embiid's team, it's got to be unnerving, at least a little bit. And I hope, he seems like a kid with a good head on his shoulders. So I really do hope that it doesn't become a long-term issue. But I imagine in the short term, it's got to be hard to stay focused, to stay, 100% eyes on the prize and not be distracted about, hey, this was my city. It was me and Iverson advertising the Boathouse Row jerseys, and now I might never get to wear them.
It's my team. It's my city. It's my jersey. It's my penalty box.
It is my penalty box, and I'll cry when I put someone in it if I want to. Don't know why I went there, but I do know why I'm going with Gene. Gene, who is in your penalty box this evening?
So this one is not necessarily sports related, but it does affect me when I watch sports. I am putting in gambling websites and general gambling advertising into the penalty box. It is not that I'm against gambling, but one of the things that irritates me in life is when I have, it's the same idea of if I have to hear the same song on the radio too many times, I just get sick of repetition. Maybe it's my ADD. I don't know. But if I keep seeing the same thing over and over again, I get really irritated. And if you've watched anything with as far as the Flyers or Sixers recently, every break on Comcast Sportsnet, you are treated to some gambling, some way to gamble on the game that you are currently watching. It's so much so that you even get updated odds as the game is going on. Now, I get it. This is the world we live in, where you're sitting on your couch and you can, as they say, get some skin in the game. But for God's sake, I just want to I just want to watch the game and not be tempted by my vices. I'm already enjoying some food I'm probably not supposed to be eating. Can you not tempt me to blow money that I don't have? So in that case, I would really love if we could just get one night, one game, one half of a game where I wasn't shilled, where I wasn't shilled to by gambling websites.
Gene, can we get a list of your vices just to make sure we don't touch on too many of them during the show?
Gambling, loose women, any white powders, and clear liquors. Those are my main vices.
Well, those are the big ones.
Well, Gene's apparently snorting anthrax in between shows. So gambling websites that tempt Gene into committing one of his 7 deadly sins. You're going to the penalty box, 1-800-PENALTY-BOX. Call if you have a gambling problem. 2 minutes for seducing the innocent. All right, Dave, who is in your penalty box this evening?
I am putting Gwyneth Paltrow in the box. Yes. And I'm not sure what the infraction is yet. It could be one of 2 possible infractions, or it could be 2 penalties. I'll let you decide. So evidently, Gwyneth Paltrow has a candle that smells like her vagina. Mm-hmm. It's called the This Smells Like My Vagina candle. And evidently, a UK woman won the candle as a prize on a quiz show. And
please tell me it was Countdown.
The candle exploded in her apartment. She says it emitted huge flames with bits flying everywhere. I've never seen anything like it. The whole thing was ablaze, and it was too hot to touch. So either the candle is remarkably like Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina, or she's
very lifelike
products. I don't know. Gwyneth Paltrow is going into my penalty box.
All right, so we need to talk to Chris Martin, and then we need to find out, is this extremis related from Iron Man 3? Because there was a lot of fire produced there, and I think that might be an issue. And there was a lot of criticism, mostly by gynecologists, over the jade egg that goes in the vagina. But perhaps if you're part dragon, you definitely need that jade egg. So Gwyneth Paltrow, your candles, your vagina, your jade egg, and your goop, I'm sending all of you to a penalty box. This is getting out of hand. 2 minutes for you, 2 minutes for you, 2 minutes for you. You're all going to the penalty box. Game unsportsmanlike conduct.
Chuck, who's in your penalty box tonight?
Oh, I had it between 2 people. One was Sam Carchidi, a favorite one for just a really poorly written article, but it was more of a pedantic kind of thing. But I'm giving one to someone who I don't think has ever been in our penalty box before, and it's our last opportunity to put him in the penalty box as president. Donald J. Trump is in my penalty box this evening. And before you think we're getting all political, which we have in the past, but before you think we're doing that tonight, it's a sartorial penalty. It's over the damn red hat. Over the Make America Great Again hat. The one that back when you used to go to malls looked like World's Best Grandpa is the thing that was modeled on the Get Your Hat Embroidered Here stand.
The rope that goes along the brim.
Oh yeah. Oh, the rope. Sure. It's like I love my pop-up. Like whatever. Like you would get this done. You would order it, go shopping for half an hour, get it back, and give someone a really shitty Father's Day present. And when he introduced this hat in his ultimately successful campaign for president, it was a joke. Everyone laughed. Look how cheap and ugly this thing was. And then his supporters bought it up. And now if you wear a red hat with white writing, everyone thinks you're wearing a freaking MAGA hat. So I have a new Flyers hat. I replaced both my Flyers hat and my Phillies hat. And I didn't buy. What's what?
Because you had a red Flyers hat?
No. It was unrelated.
Okay, got it.
They were just beat to hell, and it was time to replace them. And I looked at that damn red Phillies hat, and I'm like, it looks way too close. So I went and I got a classic maroon, Fat P, until the tensions in our nation die down. So Donald J. Trump, you are being impeached from the penalty box, which means that you cannot come back to co-host PodAdelphia. Do whatever
one time was enough.
He couldn't even read off his cue cards. Pete Davidson talked about it all over Howard Stern, but they changed it to SNL for some reason. So President Trump, 45, you're going in for 45 minutes. We're impeaching you from the podcast.
All right, that is all the time we have for this week. Big thank you to the Painted Lines for hosting us tonight. We'll be back next week with more Flyers coverage, Sixers coverage. Maybe Phillies make some moves. Maybe the Eagles hire a coach, but we'll be here to talk about it. If you haven't done so already, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search PodAdelphia. If you have any more time in your podcast listening week, be sure to check out the Whip Around for all the week's weird news. And so until we speak again, have a great day at work, everybody. We are out of here.